And we are recording too.
You know, I'll share this up front for those that have already joined in and they can hear it. You may hear it again in the presentation, but a lot of people express, apprehension about going to a contract position because they say, well, it's not as secure. It's, I'd rather have a full-time job. And people will say that to me that are out of work, they got laid off. And so I always point out, so that full-time job, how did that work out for you?
That's right.
There's really, work is work. If you're good at something, people will pay you to do it. And it really doesn't matter whether it's full-time or contract. But I understand that there is an apprehension and a confidence level, particularly because you may not understand all the ins and outs of contracting. And that's what we hope to be able to impart here is, what does it mean to go that route? And how do you handle and approach that?
Perfect. All right, well, with that, I think we'll get started. So I am Theresa Ferguson. I'm the Executive Director of Austin Up. Austin Up is a nonprofit that was formed in 2014 as a result of the Mayor's Task Force on Aging. And what we do is we work on issues related to the future of aging in Austin, and employment is one of those issues for sure. So about twice a month, we present information to older adults, tools and techniques on improving their job search. And this presentation is part of that, a little bit different take on it, talking about how to be a successful contractor and what it takes. And we have two wonderful speakers. One of them, Chip Sampson, he is on the Austin Up board, and he has presented to Austin Up community in the past, but he has more than 20 years of experience in the professional services and project team placement industry. And during that time, he's developed long-term business relationships with a large number of employers and a network of contacts. So I think he knows from one aspect what this role as a contractor, what a successful role could look like. And then Sean Hale, he is with Sean Hale Consulting, his own company. During last year, he transitioned from being an employee to a consultant, and he started 2.5 businesses while managing his son's Zoom kindergarten experience. And as I told Sean, the term Zoom and kindergarten should not go together, but here we are. He is going to tell us in his experience what it takes, what to look out for. And then he's also started a nonprofit organization. I think it's a nonprofit, Philanthroforce, which helps nonprofits identify the right consultant for the job. So lots of information to get to. Let's just get it started. Chip, are you going to kick it off?
I can do that.
All right.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being here. I'm going to share my screen here and put it into presentation mode. Or slideshow mode. Oh, there we go. We'll get back to the beginning. Can everybody see that?
Looks good.
All right. So as Theresa said, both Sean and I are going to cover a variety of things. And what I wanted to do at the front is cover, I guess, what I consider the big picture of switching from a salaried employee to a contractor. There may be some of you on this meeting that have already done that. There may be some who are thinking they want to do it, but don't maybe understand how they should approach it. And there are others who maybe are, as I said earlier, if you were here earlier, apprehensive about the whole process. Hopefully we can help you get past that. But whatever you think about contracting, I want to talk about the fact that there are factors that drive the transition towards contracting. It's been a while since I've looked at the figures on this, but I want to say that it was by 2021 or 2022, the expectation is 25% of all work will be contract work. And that number will probably continue to grow. The reason for that is there's really a changing workforce dynamic. Boy, driven home in the last year, right, by the pandemic. how many people previous to March of 2020 thought, you know what, 99% of us are going to be working from home. Yet that's what many people are doing, unless you're in a service industry where you have to go in um, and serve the public in some form or fashion. But almost every other professional type position is being done remotely via tools like Zoom. And that talks about the technology piece. I think Sean will touch on technology too. But technology is constantly evolving. The idea of using Microsoft Word or Excel and all those tool sets on a desktop in an office in front of a desk or a cubicle is fading. There are lots of collaborative tools out there, all the Google suite of tools, and just this huge plethora of project management type tools and tracking type tools that are becoming available and becoming sort of the de facto tools to use. And so when you think about moving in the direction of consulting, it will be also helpful to think about the evolving technology and try to familiarize yourself with as much of it as you can. And then the last thing is kind of an age factor. And I'm going to look at the age factor from two perspectives. We're kind of geared towards the 50, 55 plus crowd, which is many of you on this call. It's certainly me. And that's a piece of it. But first, let's talk about just college kids or young millennials coming out. They understand the changing workforce dynamic, and they understand or easily can adapt to a lot of this evolving technology. So that's also a factor that's driving this. It makes it really easy for companies to take the approach of contracting because they don't have to train that group of people to do that sort of thing. Now, in our case, that may not be the same. But I want you to know and understand that there is at no point in your life, no matter what age you are, that you have to stop learning and just do what you know. Many people do that, but you can continue to learn new tools, new technologies, new tricks, and it will actually kind of defer the whole age factor when it comes to people who are looking for work in our demographic and say nobody wants to hire anybody my age. Nobody wants to hire anybody that doesn't know tools and technology or isn't open to doing things in a progressive way. But they will absolutely hire you regardless of age if you have the right approach. So I just wanted to get into those factors that are driving that. And then I want to address risk and reward. Because I know that as a general rule, many people consider contracting risky. So is it risky? Well, you might experience gaps between contracts or work assignments if you are a contractor. Is that a risk? Yes, it can be. One of the ways to mitigate that risk is that you need to be deliberate if you're going to be a contractor about self-promotion and marketing. Do you have to be a full-on sales person and be pushy about it? Not at all. When I say be deliberate, what I mean is you need to know and understand what you do, who values that, and then when you're given an opportunity to promote yourself, or you see a potential of some place where you might be able to market your skills, you need to know it, identify it, and take that opportunity. So be deliberate about how you go about promoting the work that you are good at and that you want to do. And then probably the biggest risk of contracting is you may not have benefits. I know this is a huge thing. I actually had to address it myself when I decided to break away and become a contractor. This is not necessarily always the case, though. But if you are in a situation where you're doing just pure 1099, the benefits will be a big factor there. And there are benefits available. You just need to invest a little time and homework into figuring out what your benefits will look like. So are there any rewards to contracting? I think there are. I've been doing it for 3 years now. Previous to that, like Theresa said, for 20 years, I hired a lot of contractors to put them in clients and doing work. One of the biggest ones is that the pay, you get higher pay as a contractor to offset the risks. And let me just give you an example. If you're paid, I'm a business analyst, if you're paid $70,000 in a full-time position as a business analyst, you might assume that 23 to 25% additional on top of that could be what you figure in for the benefits that you're provided, like, you know, healthcare, vision, dental, time off, etc. So that would make it a little closer to 100K. Well, as a business analyst in the contracting world, you can easily make $50 or $60 an hour, which is 100K or 120K. So and when you annualize that, so you not only can make more money as a contractor, you need to know and understand that market so that you absolutely demand that you make the higher pay for the risk that you're taking on as a contractor. The flexibility to manage your vacation and downtime between assignments. To me, this is a huge benefit of contracting. Yes, you may have gaps between assignments, and you may be able to manage exactly what those gaps are, how long they are, and when they take place. If you know your assignment's going to end, then maybe you want to take a month off or 2 months off. How often can you do that as a full-time employee? Just go to your employer and say, you know what, I think I'm going to just chill out and travel around for a while, and I'll be back to work in a couple months. There are some companies that offer this sabbatical benefit, but not many. And then the ability to choose your employer. I know that the statistics on employee satisfaction are abysmal. It's over 50% of the people in any given position are somehow dissatisfied with their work or their employer, which means they are either actively looking to change or they're at least thinking about it on a regular basis. If you're a contractor and you don't like who you're working for, go find another one. Go find another employer. You get to choose that. Now, you don't want to do it too often. You don't want to become known for jumping around a lot, but you don't have to stay in a bad situation. So how do you find the right consulting company fit for you? Let's look first at the interview or the interview process. And the question I would ask is, who's interviewing who? Typically, if you reach out to a consulting company, they're obviously going to start asking you a whole bunch of questions about your background and your skills and the type of work you're looking for. If you let it, it can almost sound like they're interviewing you. And honestly, in a way they are. They're trying to find out what kind of person and what kind of consultant would you be. But the reality is you're interviewing them. Don't ever relinquish control of the process. You want to know as much about them as a company and what they can do for you as they want to know about you and what you can do for them as a consultant in their organization. So prepare a list of questions to ask. I'll give you 4 of them. By no means is this an exhaustive list. These are just some of the things that you want to think about when you're interviewing a potential consulting company to let them represent you and go to work for them. So the first thing you want to know is, what types of companies do you work with primarily? What I mean by that is, do they work with? You're asking them this question. So you want to know, does this particular consulting organization, if I'm a business analyst, do they work with businesses that hire business analysts, or do they provide, people that are healthcare professionals? Well, if I'm not a healthcare professional, then that's not a company you want to work with. Seems pretty obvious, but you really want to drill down and ask them what kind of companies they work with. You also want to find out they may work with some companies you either have worked for or you know of, and you know you don't want to work there. So you want to be clear on that. Ask them how many consultants they currently have and what types of skill sets do those consultants have. Why that's important is, if it's a 5-person consulting group, then they probably have a little less track record. Not to say that they're not good at it, because you got to start somewhere. And in fact, that could be to your advantage if they're really aggressive about building their business. But find out how many they have. If they've got a couple of hundred consultants, then try to slice and dice the skill sets that they place regularly across their clients and figure out, do the skills they typically place line up with the skills that I have? If they don't, you've completed your interview, you move on to another company looking for the right fit. The third is, what do you look for in a successful consultant? Get a little bit from them, and this helps set expectations of what they want a successful consultant to look like. And then ask, what additional benefits do you provide your consultants? This is where you might be able to cover that question of, I'm not working full-time, so I don't have healthcare and dental and vision benefits, but do you as a consulting company provide those? One thing that if benefits are a huge part of the equation for you, one thing you want to know is that there are many types of consulting companies. All of them are basically hiring you into their company on their payroll and then farming you out to another client, right? Now, sometimes you might be able to set up your own company and go direct, but we're kind of looking at it as you're going through a company. Some of those provide benefits, some of them do not. If benefits are important, this is a big question. You get the answer, it's either yes or no, and if it's no, you move on. If it's yes, it could be a company you want to work with. However, you decide to list out your questions and ask them and get the answers, at some point, what you're trying to do in this who's interviewing who, you're both interviewing each other, is you're trying to come to a mutual agreement. And so you want to understand clearly, what do they need from me in order to be successful representing me? And what can I expect from them in order to meet my needs, whatever they may be? And so this is those are the two things you're trying to get answered in the interview process. And then once you do that, you want to establish a communication plan and stick to it. I know a lot of consultants in my years of doing this previously that would call you once, go through all this process, ask these questions, and then you would never hear from them again. Now, you might remember to call them a week later or 2 weeks later, but by the time 4 weeks passes, they've forgotten about you and you've forgotten about them. Once you find a good company, establish a communication plan. Tell them, I'm going to call you every Monday morning just to touch base, see how things are going, see if anything came up the week previous or if you see anything coming up in the week ahead. Could be just a 5-minute touch base, but you keep your name and your interest in front of them. So how many consulting companies should you work with? That depends. It depends on what kind of niche you're in. If you are a neonatal anesthesiologist, there's probably 1 or 2 companies that you would want to work with, and that's enough, because there aren't going to be a lot of companies in that space, and anyone who hires a neonatal anesthesiologist on contract is probably going to go to one of those 2 companies looking for them. If your niche is a little broader, like a business analyst, like I am, and in fact, there's different types of business analysts. I do more business process analysis. That can be done across a huge variety of industries. And so you might, in that case, want to have half a dozen strategically selected companies. And that might be a better approach. And what I mean by strategically selected is you want, because you're going back and asking those questions we talked about previously, and you're finding out what companies they work with, try not to work with two companies that are swimming in the same swimming pool and calling on the same clients. See if you can get them with a broader reach of clients, a different group of clients that they work with. That way you're picking and choosing and getting the most coverage that you possibly can. Try not to get with companies that that are going to submit you for the same opportunity, because what tends to happen then is oftentimes you might be eliminated from the opportunity if two companies submit you, because the client who's hiring does not want to argue over which one gets to actually have the hire. Work with a manageable number of companies, and that's really entirely up to you. If you can manage 12 companies and they're all strategically selected and are covering a bunch of different ground for you, great, do it. If 3 is more of a manageable number for you, that's fine, do that. But one thing you do want to do with every company that you decide you want to work with is work with a specific recruiter that you've selected at each company. Many companies have multiple recruiters. Don't just rely on chance that, every time you call in, you'll get this recruiter and then you'll get another recruiter, that they're all communicating, because they probably aren't. Oftentimes what recruiters do is they'll work with the candidate, and if another opportunity comes up with another recruiter, they'll share your resume with that recruiter and say, I've got somebody who's a perfect fit for that type of position. And so you continue to work with one recruiter, let them work internally with the other recruiters. Otherwise, it gets, again, kind of confusing in terms of who's representing you at that particular agency. Also, if a recruiter moves from one agency to another that you've been working with, keep up with them and keep track of them, because they will continue to help you throughout the years. I've worked with many, many recruiters that have had candidates for 20 plus years that they've just continually placed on project after project after project, because they know they'll do good work and they represent them well. And again, manage the expectations with that recruiter. What do you expect from me? What can I expect from you? What are the qualities of a good consultant? And we're almost done here. Now we're starting to look at, those were the processes. What do you want to do? How do you go about finding a company? These are really oriented towards you specifically, and what is it that makes a good consultant, and know that you need to have these things in order to be desirable to a consulting company. This is a very short list, by the way. The list can go on and on about what qualities make up a good consultant, but the first is be prepared. Have resumes, have references, have other documents, supporting documents for your work or whatever it may be, ready to go at all times and up to date. You never know when that opportunity is going to be there. And a lot of times you'll take a contract and then just kind of sit there and not update anything. The thing to do is, while you're on a contract, continually update with the work that you're doing, because at any point in time, an opportunity may come your way where someone says, hey, I'm looking for someone that does that sort of thing. Can you send me your resume and references? And you want to do it because it could lead to your next opportunity. Be responsive. If you're contacted about a job, respond quickly. Recruiters, I hear this way too often about candidates saying, oh, I contacted this recruiter, we had a nice long conversation, and then they just ghosted me. I understand it from the recruiting side. They have tons of things on their desk and paper that they're dealing with, and documents they're moving back and forth. And they may reach out to you, and if they don't get you, as soon as they hang up, they're reaching out to the next person and the next person and the next. So if you don't respond quickly, someone 3 or 4 people down the line could be the one who responded, and that's the one that gets the opportunity. So be very responsive. Be professional, always, and with no exceptions. You need to be self-aware. This requires you to do some of your own research, but you also can get some information, insight, and advice from recruiters that you work with too. Know what your skills and capabilities are, and know how those are valued in the market. Be positive in both mind and actions. I say this when I talk to people about consulting. You can get into an office situation where there's gossip and things like that going around, or negative talk about other people. Just walk away from it. Don't even get involved in it. Say positive things about people, positive things about solutions and approaches, and always focus on the positive, and don't dwell on the negative. Provide active feedback. When I wrote this, I thought what I really mean is to your consulting company. So if you go in for an interview, when you get out to your car, pick up the phone, call your recruiter, and give them feedback directly on that interview. How did it go? Who did you speak with? What were their names and titles if you have taken that information down? What kind of questions did they ask you? What do you think went well? What do you think didn't go well? The reason for that is at some point, if they're interested in you, they're going to get back with the recruiter, or if it's a really good recruiter, they're going to be proactive and get with the hiring manager, and they're going to talk through. And if they have your feedback, they might be able to represent you better and sell against any kind of negative result that may have come up in the interview. They're good recruiters are really good at that and can end up closing a deal for you. And never, ever, I only wrote it once though, discuss money or benefits with the client. Nothing turns a client off more that's looking for a contractor than having someone come in and at some point during the interview either ask them about going full-time or ask them about what their company benefits are or what kind of pay it is in a full-time position. It shows you're not interested in the contracting piece. Oftentimes companies are just hiring contractors for specific reasons. They don't want to hire a full-time employee. And so you could have a great interview and talk yourself out of the opportunity by discussing that. So money and benefits is always discussed with your consulting company. So we're going to wrap it up. And what's next? What do you do next? Now that you've reached out, you've figured out who the companies are, you found a few that you like, you feel like they're representing you well. You want to still continually actively seek prospects, and prospects being both individuals and companies that might hire you. Don't just contact 1 or 2 companies and feel like, all right, well, they're working, they got my resume, they're working with me, I'll just sit back and wait until they call me. As I said, they've got a lot on their plate. Unless you're actively managing expectations and continuing to maintain a communication plan with them, in 3 or 4 weeks, they're going to forget about you because someone else is going to call them with the same skills and engage them and be active in their communication. Don't sit back, stay active with those companies and keep looking for other companies that strategically fit in your desired contracting approach. Continue your networking and connecting is basically what I'm saying, and with both individuals and with companies. And take the time in between to maybe work on improving any skills or knowledge. There's all kinds of free stuff to learn some of these new tools that I mentioned that are out there, these collaborative tools, and all kinds of reading that you can do just about consulting in general or about your particular area of expertise. Keep yourself current. And I think that's all I got. If you want to ask me any questions or follow up on anything that I've said here. If you want a copy of this presentation, send me an email at chip@employmentpuzzle.com.
So Chip, one
Yes.
one question we had is, so if someone's just starting out or considering going into the contracting world, is going to a consulting company the best way to do it, or should they try a few solo gigs? Like going on Indeed.com and looking for contract positions. Are you suggesting that they should go with a consulting firm?
You know what, I am, and if it's the first time they've done that, hang on, I'm going to stop my presentation and jump back over, I think. I'm trying to jump back over to you. Let me just close that and see what happens.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, but I don't see you.
Oh.
But that's okay.
That's definitely okay.
There we go. All right. That's a good, fair question. And there were a couple elements in there. First of all, should they go out? You said, should they go out solo and go to like Indeed and try to get a position that way? If you try to go on your own to make this happen, it's a huge, huge marketing and promotion lift. If you're up for that, if you like to do that sort of thing, if you like to self-promote and contact, 5, 10 companies a day and try to make those connections and get to the right person, sure. But what's happening at consulting companies is they've got a recruiting team, and that's who you're typically working with, and they've got a business development team. And that business development team is out fostering relationships with companies across the market that you're in. And so they've covered that ground already. There's a working relationship there. All they need is a really good, solid, qualified person. And so if you're more confident in your skills and your abilities, but not in your desire or ability to go out and sell and market yourself, go with a consulting company. If you're comfortable with both, go at it in whatever manner you want. I will say, though, that stuff that's posted out on job boards, I've had this happen just numerous times. People come up to me and say, I've applied to 300 positions and I've got hardly any response at all. One guy did this at a job club that I was talking at. And I said, let me guess, you got no more than 15 responses. He said, yeah, how'd you know? And I said, and of those 15, probably only 3 to 5 of them actually resulted in any kind of an interview. And he said, absolutely. He said, that's crazy numbers. Why would I send out 300 resumes to get 5 interviews? And I was explaining to him kind of the stuff, Theresa, you've heard about employment puzzle stuff, is that is, you can do it that way, but it's just such a frustrating approach. It's more, if you want to go consulting and it's the first time you've done it, let the company do the heavy lift of the marketing. You just market your skills to them, to the company, and pick the right companies to work with.
Great. Well, let's go ahead. We have a couple other questions, but let's go ahead with Sean. And maybe some of these questions will be answered with Sean's presentation.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Theresa. And I'm going to go ahead and try and pull my presentation up. And also I should note that that same question, go independent or with a firm, that's also addressed in the handout I put together. We have an article in there for folks. So just a few more considerations as somebody is considering, do I do one, do I do the other, do I try and do both at the same time? Yeah, it's an honor to be here today with everybody. And Chip, thank you so much for the nice setup and kind of painting a big picture for everybody. And I get to talk about some of the details that you might want to have with you as you're thinking about, do I make this transition and how do I make this transition? First thing you might want to consider, if you haven't done it yet, is looking at the business model canvas. You'll find a link for this in the handout, but also you can just Google business model canvas. There are a bunch of them out there. And the idea is that this is basically a one-page tool that you can use to help you just make sure, are you covering the bases as you're thinking about setting up your own consulting business, right? It helps you think through questions like, who are my key partners? What are the key activities that I need to be able to do in order to make this whole thing work? What's my value proposition, which is kind of like, what am I doing that nobody else is doing? What do I bring to the table that's going to make me attractive to a potential client? What's my cost structure going to be? So this is a great tool that, it's a good one to, like brew a pot of coffee with this or any business proposition, right? Brew a pot of coffee, sit back. You can do this with pen and paper, print it out, have a few extra pages, and just start writing. When you're all done, this is a great thing to let sit for a couple of days, and then bring in a trusted friend or two, somebody who will really help you kind of put your idea through the ringer and help you make sure you've identified the weak spots and the strengths in your plan. And I would not want to encourage anybody to wait until you get it perfect, because we never get there. And so if you have any tendencies towards procrastination, or if you, like me, have any tendencies towards perfectionism, don't let this get in the way of you making a decision and making a choice. But at the very least, work out the rough edges and know where your potential weaknesses might are, because you can still fix some of the stuff on the way, but know what they are, and that's what this tool is good for. So I'm going to switch over into talking about technology for a little bit, and I'm going to be making an assumption here in what I'm talking about, that everybody on the call, they at least want to replace the income that they've been getting from their most recent full-time job. If you're on the call and you're just thinking, well, I might do this as kind of like, to get some pizza money and, maybe to take a nice vacation from time to time, some of this might be less relevant to you. Because what I really want to say about technology is that how we use technology can say a lot about us to potential clients. And this is especially true if we're out there acting independently and creating those relationships with clients like I am. And so, my son and I, for example, we love classic cars, but we don't put those front and center in what I do. And, if you are all about classic cars, literally or metaphorically, that's okay if that's who you are and that's who you want to be. But I would encourage you to be careful and intentional about that. And certainly, I would encourage you to never misrepresent yourself, right? Don't say you're going to the moon unless you're going to the moon. And, if Elon Musk is on the call, right, I hear he's moving to Austin, like he can totally say he's going to the moon because that's his plan, right? But most of the rest of us, I would encourage us to aim towards, can we position ourselves and can we set up our professional profile as we're a Honda, right? We're not a rocket. We're not a Model T Ford. We're a Honda. And what I mean by that is that we're dependable, we're reliable, we're contemporary, we're up to date, we're comfortable with basic technology, and we're ready to go, and we're eager to go another 100,000 miles or something like that. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with these tips. And when it comes to basic technology, what I'd recommend everybody think about is, what does your current technology usage, what message does that say about your LinkedIn profile? It says a message. I hope everybody's familiar with LinkedIn. Because this is a way that you're going to find potential clients, or they're going to find you. And even if you don't find them through that, very often they're going to go and check out your LinkedIn profile just to get a sense of who you are. And so your number of connections and who you're connected to and how you're presenting yourself there, it's an online resume for you. And so that is something that is going to it represents everybody. What email address are we using? And having a modern email address sends a little bit more of that Honda kind of message. If we're using something like an AOL email address, that can suggest to potential clients that you may be closer to the Model T Ford side of the technology spectrum. If you want to get out of that and you want to send the message that you are kind of up to date with technology and stuff like that, a Gmail account, it's free, it's easy to set up, and that's going to say that you are more in tune with contemporary technology. If you want to take it even a higher level, having your own personalized email address, like mine is sean@seanhale.org, that suggests that you are serious and committed to consulting, that you're not just testing the waters, that it is a decision that you are doing for the long haul. And so getting something like a website, this is second level kind of stuff, right? LinkedIn profile comes first, having a modern email address comes second, but your website, if you're able to get a personalized domain name, and it doesn't need to be fancy, you don't need to have fancy web skills. I built one for a friend the other day, and I think it maybe took 3 hours to put up a nice basic consulting website for her. And actually, one of the lessons I learned from it is I think I'm going to launch that as a little side business next month. Just putting those together for consultants, because it's for people who don't have the time or the inclination. It can be a nice service, but really it doesn't take all that much to put together a good basic kind of online business card is what your website is going to be. Just a handful of pages, some nice images. Squarespace is a really nice place to go, and DIY if that's how you like to do that. Getting into online directories, and these are going to be different depending on the industry that you're in. I'm in I work with nonprofits, and so, and you saw the name of the directory that I've helped build and just launched, Philanthroforce, on the first slide that we had at the beginning. And so that, Philanthroforce, if you're in the nonprofit sector, that's a great one for you to get listed in. In fact, I saw that one of the people on the call today, Betty, is actually in Philanthroforce. And we built a website for Betty. So hi, Betty. But anyway, the point being is that every industry is going to have those for skilled consultants. And so do some research, find those. You'll find that some are free, some charge. Some of them are going to charge an arm and a leg, and they're not going to do anything for you. So you definitely want to do your research before you drop hundreds and hundreds of dollars. But that's something worthwhile to research, especially if you are wanting to do the self-promotion. Additional services, things that I would recommend and hope that you would have on your radar screen. Canva is a great one for business cards and a bunch of other stuff. But if nothing else, check it out for your personal business cards. That's where I got mine. And they have a nice tool online. It's free. You can design your own cards. You can build yours in less than an hour. And so they did mine, and it's all pretty. Once I designed it, I hit click. I think I paid them 25 bucks, and they printed up 100 for me. It's double-sided, full bleed, looks fancy and contemporary. It's not that they're anything totally sophisticated about it, but they did a really nice job for a really nice price. And I was able to match the colors with the colors on my website really easily. So it's a great, inexpensive way to have a nice look to your presentation when we get back into handing out physical business cards again. Even though the need for a personal, professionalized website, that's going to just continue to grow. The other service that I like that you might want to check out is Top Resume. I used them a couple of years ago to update my resume to make sure that it was really contemporary. I was using a contemporary layout, explaining myself and just kind of putting my best foot forward. They helped me to really tease out my accomplishments and express them in a way that would really speak loudly to potential employers and potential clients. And they also gave me a bunch of great advice for fine-tuning my LinkedIn profile. So Top Resume, it's a good service worth checking out. And they have a couple of different options like $100, $200, and $300. So they're worth checking out. And of course, we wouldn't want to not talk about money today, right? Because this, at the end of the day, this is about money, and it's about not just the work that we want to do in the world, but having good income. And so, and Chip alluded to some of these things already. When it comes to taxes, you're going to be in charge of those, and you'll be paying all your taxes where your employer had been paying some of those before. Your employer used to pay half of your FICA, your Social Security, and Medicare. Now you're going to be paying 100% of that. If you want to be on the, so at a minimum, I would encourage you for every $100 you bring in consulting income, put aside 25 of that at a minimum to cover your taxes at the end of the year. If you want to be on the safe side, put aside 35%. And then, maybe you'll have some leftover money once you get done, paying Uncle Sam if you want to play it safe. And certainly savings. If you're going directly from full-time employment to full-time consultant, but you don't have a big line of people waiting to pay for your services, then you might be going through some savings your first year. If you're in a position where you're able to start consulting as a side gig while you're still employed full-time, that can definitely reduce the impact to your savings. But otherwise, expect that you could go through some of your savings before you really hit your full stride. I've had a lot of people tell me that it can be like first or second year when we're not in the middle of a pandemic before you really hit your full stride with consulting. Setting your rate, and this is another important one. Chip alluded to it as well. There's not a magic formula. It's going to depend somewhat on the industry that you're in. It's going to depend on your particular skills, right? Are you Superwoman, Superman in this area, or are you, what is your skill level and what is the demand in particular for you, right? Because there's demand for your skills, but then do people know you by name? Are they asking for you by name? Because if they are, you can charge more, right? But at a minimum, today you can set a target, right? What do I want to be charging 12 or 24 months from now, right? What you were getting on your last W-2 can be a good starting point. And then ramp that up 50 to 100% more, because remember, you're going to be paying for business development. You're going to be paying for your own benefits, your own vacation, your own professional development. All those things are going to be coming out of your pocket and your time now. So if for your last job, you were making the equivalent of 30 bucks an hour, maybe you should be charging 45 to 60 bucks an hour just to kind of get things roughly into the same place. And consider whether or not you want to do a discount for early gigs. There are different schools of thought on that. The upshot is that might help you get your foot in the door, get some of that early experience and get some of that name recognition and get some clients that you can point back to, right? That's, in fact, Theresa may tell you that is how I got my start. She was my very first client when I started consulting a year ago. And of course, supply and demand is going to drive things, right? When you have 20 people knocking down your door for your services, rather than closing the door on them, maybe that's time to take your rate from 60 bucks an hour to 80 bucks an hour or 100 bucks an hour until the demand kind of starts to level out, right? So that's an opportunity. But basically, set a target and work for it, work towards it. And as we all know, the pandemic sucks, right? There's been too much death, too much fear, too many people losing jobs, losing their homes. Children have been impacted. My own son is not exactly loving Zoom kindergarten. And there's been a disproportionate impact on people from historically marginalized communities. So there's not very many good things to say about the pandemic, and it's changed the nature of work. Some of these changes that are happening because of the pandemic can represent advantages to you as a consultant if you're ready to take advantage of them, if you're ready to pivot with the way the job place and the workplace is changing. Because all these businesses have learned that, well, Zoom works, remote work works, and it's cheaper for us to not be flying back and forth, that can be an opportunity for you, right? And that can mean not just kind of more opportunities for work, but better matches for you, because all of a sudden, instead of you potentially matching with a dozen local employers, clients, you could be matching with hundreds around the country. And that can allow you to really focus the nature of your work to doing that thing that people want to pay you for, but also that you really love to do. So certainly that is one of the things to be thinking about. But in order to take advantage of that opportunity, that also requires being prepared. And so how comfortable are you with Zoom and other platforms? Are you ready to give a presentation and do client work and put together the slideshows and things like that that make for a quality online work kind of presentation and product? Are you familiar with tools like Google Calendar so that is an easy back and forth? Because that's going to really, that tends to make things a lot easier than using the paper and pen method of keeping a calendar these days. Makes it easy to share a Zoom link. And of course, Calendly, if you want to go next level with your calendaring, is a great way to set up those coffees and meetings and stuff like that. And rather than having 5 emails back and forth, like, can you do Thursday at 4? Well, no, how about Friday at 6 or whatever? You just send somebody a link and they get to see, just see what vacancies are there on your calendar and book it right there. And Calendly takes care of all the back and forth for you. So tools like that, they can make you look good, but they also can help you really thrive in the new opportunities that the remote workforce is creating for us. So, it's time for us to move into questions and answers. And of course, Theresa will be sharing out a handout after this, but certainly before we, in the last 10 seconds here, I want you to have our contact information. So if you want to reach out to Chip, that's chip@employmentpuzzle.com. And I'm Sean Hale, Sean@seanhale.org. And with that, I think, Theresa, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. One question we had for you, Sean, is you were talking about, gigs and things. Is it ideal to have multiple gigs at once? And if that's the case, any tips and techniques about managing time as you manage your time and divide your time between the gigs?
That's a great question. And I think it depends. It depends on what you want. It depends on what opportunities are there for you. For example, there was an opportunity that came to me right as the whole pandemic thing was becoming very, very, very real and very long term, right, in mid to late March. And if I had taken that on, that would have been not just like 30 hours a week for me. That probably would have been too much while we were trying to run a Zoom kindergarten and all the other stuff that comes along with that. So sometimes and I know a lot of people who do interim CEO positions for nonprofits. And so those can, sometimes they're 25, 30 hours a week, and ideally you set them. There are a bunch of reasons for that, but sometimes it might only be 1 or 2 clients, depending on how much work you want to have and just how serious it is. But then because if you have multiple clients, like I have a number of clients myself right now, and then it's juggling. Sometimes it's having a network of peers that you can lean on. In fact, that's one thing I've had to do this year is go to my network of peers and get them set up. In fact, I have a note here to myself to go find a couple more because I'm doing Zoom kindergarten with Santiago. I'm having to bring in my friends and, Robbie, can you help out with this Excel wizardry? And, a number of other people are helping me out. So it depends, but that's one thing a good peer network is ready for. So either you can refer that business out if you have too much, or you can bring it under your own roof and have that person subcontract for you is also a totally legitimate business thing. And that's kind of part of what I've done with mine is you kind of utilize the network that I have to just help make those connections and get the right talent connected to the right nonprofit.
That's very interesting. I think that's helpful information. Another question, and this is for Chip, I guess. When you go with a consulting company, can you be their employee, or are you on 1099 systematically? So, and I think, Chip, you mentioned that some consulting companies will allow you to be an employee or offer benefits, but are you still a 1099?
No. Well, so here's kind of how they generally work, and it's different for every company, which is why you want to interview them as much as they're interviewing you and find out what do they offer and know what you're comfortable with. There are companies that are strict 1099. That's all they do. They're not going to do anything with benefits, taxes, etc. There are other companies that are set up to do only W-2, and they hire you as their employee. And then there's hybrid companies that will do either or. Usually, if it's a hybrid company, their preference is to hire you as a W-2 employee and provide you with benefits. Sometimes the benefits aren't that great, but they are better than no benefits. Sometimes the benefits are very expensive. So you got to look into the details. If they do hire 1099s, often they will require you to have been a 1099 for at least 2 years and to carry all the appropriate liability insurance and things that go along with that. So it's another expense that you have if you're going 1099. But they don't always require that. That's my experience from the ones I've worked with. Sean may be able to tell better whether if you're 1099, do you always have to have insurance?
I haven't had anybody ask about that, but actually that gets me thinking, I need to add some things to that handout. One of them is getting an LLC is pretty inexpensive. That can protect you from liability if you're out there doing the single shingle kind of thing. So if it's your name on the line. But then I also got an insurance policy from Hiscox, Hiscox, and they're charging me $400 a year. And that is peace of mind for me that if something, whether or not I make a mistake or a client decides I made a mistake and they want to sue, like that has my bases covered so that my personal assets aren't at risk. So that for me, it's a little bit more than $1 a day is money well spent.
That's great information too. And so Sean, will you update the handout?
I will, yes.
Just
Let me make a note right now.
Okay. Because that information about the LLC is pretty important too, or just a link. And then after the presentation, I will edit the recording, send everyone who registered the link to the recording as well as Sean's handout. So appreciate that. Are there any other questions? Oh, one question. Can you please spell the insurance company name again, Sean?
Hiscox.
Great, thank you. All right. Well, with that, I will close this presentation. You have the email addresses for our speakers. And if you have any questions, you know how to get in touch with me, Theresa@austinup.org. I encourage you to check our website, austinup.org, for additional programs related to jobs. We also have a focus group. A startup here in Austin is building a focus group to test drive some services and products with older adults, and that's happening this Saturday. So I encourage you to take advantage of that too. We always talk about entrepreneurs or talk to entrepreneurs and say, go to the source before you start a business, before you launch all these products and services. Ask us what we think. And so now this company has taken us up on that offer. So we're glad about that. We need more of them. So thank you very much to everyone. Oh, is there, go ahead.
Yes, could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
This is about staffing companies. I'm a technical writer. I frequently get contacted by recruiters, and I hate to say this, but they have such heavy accents I can barely understand them. And then I check the companies, and they're based in foreign countries. And I don't know if they're good companies to work for or not. Sometimes they've asked me up front about all my personal information, including my Social Security number, which most companies that I've dealt with don't ask that until I have a job. And I was just wondering if there are any thoughts about companies like that.
I have definite thoughts about that. No, you can't have my Social Security number. Give me a job, hire me, and we could start talking about that. You gotta be setting up something that's giving me money before I'll give you that number. And so that's clear. In terms of them being other places, that's when, again, if you've got your list of questions that you're going to interview a company on,
okay.
One of the first things I'd say is, tell me, you don't have to tell me specifically who this company is. Tell me who the companies are in my area that you work with, so I know what kind of business you have. Because if they're just pulling a requirement down off a job board somewhere and trying to submit you for it, and they have no marketing branch that's done upfront work to foster a relationship with that client, you probably don't want to work with them, regardless of what their accent is or where they're from.
Right.
Yeah.
I get frustrated because I can't understand them, and they have to I have to ask them to repeat things several times, and it's like, I don't know that I want to work with somebody if I can't communicate well with them.
Well, no, that communication is a huge part of being a consultant and working with a consulting company. So again, if you feel like, regardless of where they are or what their accent is, that you, even if they speak, the King's English, but you guys just aren't on the same mental level communication wise, you don't want to work with them.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
I agree with everything Chip said. Your instincts are right on also, independent of whether or not it's the Queen's English or whatever. It's like that sounds kind of scammy to me. The other thing that you can do, which might, if you decide to incorporate as an LLC, limited liability
Uh-huh.
corporation, you can also get an EIN from Uncle Sam. And then you're not giving out your social security number to anybody because they're paying the LLC, which is your kind of legal liability shield for you.
Right.
And so then you're giving out the EIN. So it gives you another level of safety, but I think I would stay away from those particular ones unless they can really demonstrate that they are relevant and legit.
Okay, thank you so much.
Good advice. And again, thank you, Chip. Thank you, Sean, so much. And thanks to everyone for being here.
Glad to do
We'll
it.
see.
Thanks everybody for attending.
Yes,
Thanks. It
we'll
was a
see
lot
you.
of fun.
It's great. We'll see you next time, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.